It's dark, man. It's a hard thing to start talking about, at least I think so. But I will say from the top, it's a good movie. It's just dealing with some dark subject matter. Hello and welcome to Blockbuster Review. If you don't know what that is, it is where I play a single game of Tetris Marathon and try and review a film before the blocks reach the top, or until 150 lines. Spoilers are at line 50, and the review begins when the game does. So The Iron Claw is a drama about the Von Erich wrestling family. A lot of it may have been spoiled if you, like me, watch the program Dark Side of the Ring. I really enjoy that show, and they talked about the Von Erichs in an episode, and I was like, maybe this will be too spoiled for me, but they do take liberties with the story enough that I think you'll enjoy it. It's dark, man. It's a hard thing to start talking about, at least I think so, but I will say from the top, it's a good movie. It's just dealing with some dark subject matter. Basically, this wrestling family is made up of a lot of brothers. I believe there were 6 in total. I want to count all of them, but I also... Hold on. I think it was 6 in total. The movie only really gets to 5 of them. They omit a brother named Chris, but they kind of merge Chris's story in with what happened to Mike Von Erich. So these sons are living in the shadow of their wrestling father, who is a little overbearing, who demands wrestling perfection, who outwardly talks about who his favorite is and how athletic each one is, and when are the other ones going to get involved in wrestling or athletics, even though they're more in tune with artistic pursuits. And, you know, they're fairly successful. One of them wants to be a decathlete, and then that kind of falls apart when the Americans pull out of the Olympics that year due to some bad business with Russia. And they try to stay together with wrestling. I don't want to spoil it, but the main character, Kevin, who really the movie is about in many ways, he kind of becomes a family man and does his best to just keep his brothers together and happy, while the other brothers kind of succumb to what Kevin calls a curse. Now, we're in spoiler territory. I might as well just go full hog. So if you... That's probably a terrible way to say that, but if you don't want spoilers about this movie, turn away now. So Kevin is the only remaining member of the Von Erich family alive. The rest of them were dead due to surprise illness, suicide, or a combination of the two. And the movie frames it almost as if it's a family curse. In fact, because it's A24 and it's very, it's a little artier, it's a little slower at times, for half a second it almost feels like a horror movie where the family has a legitimate supernatural curse that is causing these people to have terrible things befall them. The older brother, Dave, dies in Japan just from a sudden illness. I believe his intestines ruptured. Another brother kills himself after going into having toxic shock syndrome, going into a coma, and comes back, and he is not there. I actually want to give a shout out because the acting in this movie is pretty great. Jeremy Allen White, why can't I remember the pretty one? Zac Efron, no offense, Zach, and like he's watching, and what's his name? Harris Dickinson. They do great jobs, but I want to give a special shout out to Stanley Simons, who plays Mike Von Erich. I thought that dude killed it. I really liked what that guy did, and I like the fact that he had to play a guy who basically is not there mentally anymore. He had to play a dude who was just lost what it is to be himself, and that part really got to me. The whole movie is really about losing your family, losing your brothers, and that's where Zac Efron shines. His character literally ends up alone in what used to be a very large family, and now it's just him through all of these horrible tragedies. And then he finds it in the family he created with his wife. So while it's a depressing as all hell movie, it ends on a positive note with Kevin and his sons kind of agreeing to be each other's brothers. But yeah, I think the movie's great. I think it deserves a watch. I think everybody should see it if they have an opportunity. But I want to talk about one complaint that I shared with that my brother and I share, because my brother and I both watch this. We both enjoy wrestling stories. We don't really like watch wrestling itself, but we enjoy Dark Side of the Ring, documentaries about wrestling, things like that. So we saw this movie, and at one point there is an actor who is playing the wrestler Ric Flair. The second this dude started his Ric Flair impression, both of us looked at each other and said, nah, incorrect. And I'm not even saying I can do a good Ric Flair impression. And I know it's not the most important part of the film, but I feel like you could give anybody 20 minutes of Ric Flair promos, and they could do a better job than this guy did as Ric Flair. It seemed not right, and I don't know if they didn't want to distract from the Von Erichs, and it was a very pivotal point of the movie, so I didn't know if they just wanted to be like, well, we don't want to make this about Ric Flair by having a very bombastic Ric Flair-like promo, but it was like, dude, this guy is not Ric Flair. I didn't even watch a lot of Ric Flair, and I know that this is not Ric Flair. That aside, I think the movie is a touch long, and I read in a interview from the writer-director that the reason they did not include one of the brothers was to cut down on the movie's length. And I don't make movies, so I have no right to say this one way or another, but it seems like you could have cut some other stuff out to make room. But I think the other reason to not include it is a little more valid, which is just it would have been another brother that committed suicide. Two brothers in the film commit suicide. One is from a gunshot. One is medication. And it would have been two brothers on screen shooting themselves. It's almost like, are we making a documentary? Are they making a documentary, or are they making a movie? And that's kind of the mindset. And still good. The Iron Claw. I believe it's out in theaters right now as of this recording. It'll probably be out on streaming fairly soon, or possibly be able to rent it in some streaming services. But The Iron Claw, worth a watch. And if you can't get that, get Hulu and watch that episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Anyway, peace.